Yes. One way of cherishing the children is to make sure they're protected against sex abuse.
Yes.
And anybody who is equivocal on the question, just let me say, anybody who's equivocal on the issue of sex between minors and adults, there's a problem there. And especially at a time when we are appalled by the revelations that have occurred over the last while.
And I have never been equivalent. I've never been equivalent.
You have
and you must not say that, Vincent, because if you do, you will be perpetuating a lie that has been said about me, and I will not permit it from you or from anybody else,
You have been
with the greatest respect.
You have opposed the idea of an age of consent, a state age of consent.
No, I have not done so. That is not true.
And secondly, you have spoken about how pederasty and spoken in terms favourable to the idea of pederasty. In other words, sex between an older man and a younger man, maybe a boy. And I think that people are really apprehensive that you are ambiguous on this crucial issue.
Well, I'm not the slightest bit ambiguous. I stand totally behind the law. I think it is something that has to be cleared up. I have said repeatedly, time and time again, that I abhor with every fibre of my being the abuse of children, whether it's physical, sexual or psychological. And you, Vincent, have addressed that question to the man who introduced the guardian ad litem clause through the Senate. It took me 6 weeks of argument, and that has already protected children. And may I just say, when I was getting ready to come in here, I heard the guardian ad litem clause being discussed on RTE. And I would call on the government to implement it fully. I did the legislative work.
Okay, David, but people, I think, are further apprehensive about your refusal to disclose the letters that you wrote in connection with your friend who was convicted of sex with an underage person in Israel. You wrote letters to a number of other people in Israel, and you refused to disclose those on grounds that most of us think are highly suspicious. And we suspect
that
you
have a suspicious nature, Vincent. I think the viewing public know that. And can I tell you, your own reporters saw with me today that, as Martin said about another issue, the people have moved on. The people have moved on. There is no traction out there. And I challenge you to come with me in Limerick, in Kilkenny, in Galway, today in Cork.
You're talking down the clock. You're talking down the clock.
Well, then I'll stop.
Right, do stop. Now, you said a few days ago that you had got legal advice from somebody in Israel that it would be improper or illegal for you to disclose the letters that you've written. From whom did you get that legal advice?
That is an extraordinary question for you to ask, in my opinion. But can I just say again, this is all
it would be great if you would answer the question.
Stuff.
Would you just please answer the question?
Resurrected David, from the past.
David, just please answer.
And as far as I'm concerned,
from whom did you get that legal advice?
That is, in fact, is that one of these questions that you regularly produce, which make very good television?
Right.
But they sometimes seem to fly out of the top of your head.
From whom did you get that legal advice?
Well, I think that we're into an election.
From whom did you get
an inquisition.
From whom did you get that legal advice?
I think, Vincent, that I've answered all the questions on that, and the people have moved on.
Because some of us think you've made that up. You didn't get legal advice from me.
Well, I haven't made that up.
Because I got legal advice from somebody in Israel this morning. I wrote to people in the law faculty at Tel Aviv University, and I asked, was there a plausible reason for you claiming that there was a legal obstacle to you disclosing these letters? And only if you name the person who was the victim, or if you reveal, which you couldn't because you weren't there, what happened in in-camera proceedings. Otherwise, there was no such disqualification or obstacle. Professor Asher Moaz was the person who replied to me this morning. He said, I cannot see how this would apply, how any restriction would apply to letters written to government officials, President of Israel, government ministers, public officials or such, since obviously they were submitted in court, the more so since Norby's conviction, that your friend's conviction, was widely reported, and needless to say, etc. So how could there be a legal objection to you disclosing those letters?
Well, Vincent, I'm not a lawyer. You have some legal training, I gather. I was an academic, but I do find it unusual that within the space of a few hours, you're able to get a considered view from an academic. We all know lawyers. We all know academics.
David,
and when doctors differ...
Who did you get your legal advice from?
Excuse me, Vincent, may I answer the question? When doctors differ, patients die. And when lawyers differ, you're in a real quandary.
You claim
to have got advice from this gentleman in Tel Aviv University in a matter of hours.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Well, let's leave it there and
I'm
move on
saying who I
and
got
talk
the
about
advice
my
from.
record.
I'm saying who I got the advice from. You're refusing to say who got the advice from.
Stands. Also, come with me,
obviously,
Vincent.
there's some howler in these letters which discloses a further ambiguity on your part about sex between adult males and minors.
That is quite untrue, Vincent. And my conscience is clear. You know me. You know my record. I've been an open book all my life. All I ask is, let the people judge. If you don't believe me, come with the other reporters and see the questions that people are asking me, see the way in which they're coming up to me and saying that they're glad I'm back in the race. And may I finally thank you, Vincent, because I understand that you are one of the many thousands of people who signed the petition to bring me back into the race. So thank you very much for that. And I know that that will add into what some people may seem as your impartiality.
Martin, you said in the course of the